Every year, millions of people travel to remote resorts to escape the noise of everyday life. They go there for peace, privacy, and a sense of safety. But what most people don't realize is that many of these resorts are built in places where no one else wants to live. Far from cities, far from help. Some employees refuse to work the night shift. Some rooms are quietly taken out of service, with no explanation. And sometimes, the people you check in were never supposed to be there in the first place. So let me ask you something. If you were alone in a place like that, would you stay the night? Story 1. Rewrite. The guest who was never in the system. My name is Daniel. I'm 27 years old, and back in 2022, I worked as a night receptionist at a small beach resort in Oregon. It wasn't anything fancy, just a quiet, slightly outdated place where people went when they didn't want to be bothered. Most nights it was almost empty, especially during the off-season. That meant my job was usually simple and painfully boring. My shift started at 11 p.m. By midnight, everything would go silent. No calls, no check-ins, just the faint sound of waves in the distance and the soft hum of the old lights in the lobby. There were security cameras behind the desk, 4 of them. One pointed at the front entrance, one at the parking lot, one down the hallway, and one at the back exit. I'd check them out of habit more than anything else. Nothing ever happened. At least, not until that night. It was around 2:13 in the morning when the front door opened. I remember the exact time because I had just checked the system a minute earlier. No new bookings, no late arrivals. Everything was already settled for the night, but I still heard the faint shift of the door opening. I looked up. A man was already standing inside. I didn't see him walk in. I didn't hear footsteps. He was just there. Tall, maybe in his 40s, wearing a dark jacket that looked slightly damp, like he had just come from outside, even though it hadn't rained that night. He walked up to the desk slowly and stopped right in front of me. Checking in, I asked. He nodded once. Name he told me. I typed it into the system. Nothing came up. I tried again, thinking I might have misspelled it. Still nothing. That's strange, I said, trying to sound casual. I don't seem to have a reservation under that name. I booked online, he replied. His voice was calm, too calm, like he had no reason to doubt anything. That happens sometimes, I told myself. Glitches, delays. So I didn't question it further. I assigned him room 12 manually and handed him the key. That's when I noticed how cold his hand was. Not just cool, but unnaturally cold, like he had been standing in freezing water. He didn't say thank you, didn't ask any questions. He just turned and walked down the hallway without making a sound. And that was when something else hit me. The front door. It never creaked. That door always made noise, every single time someone opened it. But I hadn't heard anything when he came in. Not really. Just a faint suggestion of it. I leaned back slowly and looked at the security monitor behind me. The camera pointed at the front entrance showed an empty lobby. The door was closed. There was no one there. No one walking in. No one standing at the desk. Just me, sitting alone. For a few seconds, I just stared at the screen, trying to process what I was looking at. Maybe the feed was delayed. Maybe it froze for a moment. So I rewound it. 2:12 a.m., nothing. 2:13 a.m., still nothing. No door opening. No figure entering. Oh man, no. And yet, I had just spoken to him. I could still feel the cold from his hand lingering on my skin. At that point, I remember asking myself something I probably shouldn't have. What if he was still there? I grabbed the spare key for room 12. I don't even remember deciding to do it. My body just moved. The hallway felt different that night. Longer, quieter. The lights flickered slightly as I walked past each door, like they were reacting to me being there. Room 12 was at the very end, and before I even reached it, I heard something. A slow dragging sound, like something moving across the floor. Then footsteps. Not normal footsteps. Uneven, heavy in one moment, almost non-existent in the next. I stopped in front of the door. "Sir," I called out. No answer, just silence. Then a soft thud, right behind the door. My hand tightened around the key. I told myself it was just a guest moving luggage, or maybe I was overthinking everything. But if that was true, why wasn't he on the camera? I unlocked the door, pushed it open slowly. The room was empty. No one inside. No luggage. No shadow. Then, but the bed was disturbed. The sheets were wrinkled like someone had been lying there. The bathroom light was on, and when I stepped closer, I saw the mirror, covered in condensation, thick enough that you couldn't see your reflection clearly, like someone had just taken a hot shower seconds ago. I stood there for a long time, listening, waiting, but there was nothing else. No movement, no sound, just that faint smell of damp air, and something else I couldn't quite place. I went back to the front desk without saying a word. I didn't check any more cameras. I didn't open any more doors. I just sat there, counting the hours until sunrise. The next morning, I checked the system again. No reservation under that name. No record of room 12 being used. Nothing. I told my manager about it. He just stared at me for a few seconds, then said I probably imagined it. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I needed rest. Yeah, maybe. I quit 2 weeks later, and I've never worked another night shift since, because to this day, I still don't know who I checked in that night, or why. The cameras never saw him enter. Story 2. The room that was always occupied. My name is Carla. I'm 34 years old, and for about 3 years, I worked as a housekeeper at a mid-sized resort in Northern California. It was the kind of place people went to for quiet getaways. Lots of trees, fog in the mornings, and just enough distance from the nearest town to make everything feel slower. I worked the morning shift. Started at 8, finished around 4. Nothing unusual. Just cleaning rooms, replacing towels, making beds. Same routine every day. Most rooms followed a simple system. Checkout at 11, cleaning right after then, ready for the next guest. Except for one. Room 2, 1-4. At first, I didn't even notice anything strange about it. It was just another room on my list. But after a few weeks, I started to realize something didn't add up. Room 214 was always marked as occupied. Every single day. No checkout, no check-in. Just occupied. I remember asking the front desk about it once. "Hey, who's staying in 214? I said. Casually. The girl at the desk barely looked up. Long-term guest, I think. That was it. No name, no details. And honestly, I didn't question it further. Resorts have long-term guests sometimes. Riders, remote workers, people going through stuff. It happens. So I just kept doing my job. But here's the thing. Even long-term guests leave their rooms eventually. They go out. They request cleaning. They need fresh towels. Room 214 never did. Not once. Weeks went by. Then months. and I never saw anyone go in or come out. At first, it just felt odd. Then it started to feel wrong. One morning, my supervisor handed me a slightly different list. "Hey, can you check 214 today?" she said. I paused. I thought it was occupied. She shrugged. "Just do a quick check. Don't disturb anything." That didn't make sense. If someone was inside, we weren't supposed to enter unless they requested it. "Are they expecting housekeeping?" I asked. She hesitated for a second. "Just take a look." That was the first time I felt that weird tension, like I was being asked to do something I wasn't supposed to question. Still, I grabbed my cart and headed upstairs. The hallway felt colder than usual. Room 214 was near the corner close to the emergency exit. Not a lot of foot traffic. I stood in front of the door for a moment listening. Nothing. No TV. No footsteps. No movement. Just silence. I knocked. Housekeeping. No response. I waited a few seconds, then knocked again. Still nothing. So I slowly slid the keycard into the lock. The light turned green. The door clicked open. And for some reason, I hesitated. Why did it feel like I was about to walk into something I shouldn't see? I pushed the door open. The room was empty. At least, it looked empty. The bed was made. Perfectly made. Not like a guest had done it, but like it had been professionally cleaned. The curtains were slightly open, letting in that dull gray morning light. Everything looked untouched. Too untouched. I stepped inside. The air smelled stale. Not dirty, just closed off. Like a room that hadn't been aired out in a long time. I walked toward the bathroom. The light was off. I turned it on. Nothing unusual at first glance. Sink dry, towels folded. But when I looked closer at the mirror, I saw something. Finger marks. Faint, but definitely there. Like someone had touched the glass recently. I froze, because I knew for a fact no one had been in this room. At least no one that we had recorded. I stepped back slowly. That's when I heard it. A soft sound. Behind me. Like fabric shifting. I turned around. The bed. The sheets had changed. Just slightly. Like someone had pressed down on them. I stared at it, trying to convince myself I was imagining things. Maybe I bumped into it. Maybe the air shifted. But deep down, I knew that wasn't it. "Hello," I said quietly. No answer. Just that same heavy silence. I backed toward the door, not taking my eyes off the bed. And right before I stepped out, I noticed something else. The closet door. It was open. Just a crack. I was sure it had been closed when I walked in. I don't know why, but I felt this sudden urge to check it. Like if I didn't, I'd regret it later. So I stepped forward, slowly, reached out, and pulled the door open. Inside, there was nothing. No clothes, no bags, just an empty space. But the air inside the closet felt colder, and there was a smell. Damp, almost like old water. I shut the door immediately and walked out of the room. I didn't clean anything, didn't touch anything. I just left. When I got back downstairs, I told my supervisor what happened. She listened quietly. Then she said something that still bothers me. "Yeah, we've had reports about that room before. Reports, not complaints. Reports." "Then why is it still marked as occupied?" I asked. She didn't answer, just looked at me, like she was deciding how much to say. Finally, she sighed. "Just don't go in there again." That was it. No explanation, No follow-up. A week later, room 214 disappeared from my cleaning list completely, like it didn't exist anymore. But here's the part I can't explain. Sometimes when I was cleaning the hallway, I would hear something from behind that door. Soft movement, like someone was still inside. Even though officially, no one was staying there. I quit that job a few months later, and I've worked in a lot of hotels since then. But I've never seen another room that was always occupied by no one. Story 3. Something was walking around my villa. My name is Eric. I'm 31 years old, and about a year ago I took a solo vacation to a private resort in Thailand. I needed a break. Work had been exhausting and I just wanted somewhere quiet. No crowds, no noise, just a few days to myself. That's why I chose a villa instead of a hotel room. The place looked perfect online, modern design, private pool, surrounded by trees, and far enough from the main resort that you wouldn't hear anything except nature. At least, that's what I thought. The first day was exactly what I expected. Peaceful, quiet, almost too quiet. I checked in around noon, dropped my bags, and spent most of the afternoon just relaxing by the pool. There was no one around. No voices, no music, no distant traffic. Just the sound of wind moving through the trees. Even at night, it felt calm. I ordered room service, watched something on my laptop, and went to bed around midnight. Nothing unusual. But sometime in the middle of the night, I woke up. I didn't know why at first. Everything inside the villa was still. The AC was humming softly. No lights were on. Then I heard it. A footstep. Outside. Slow. Deliberate. I stayed completely still, listening. Another step. Then another. Like someone was walking along the side of the villa. At first I told myself it was probably staff. Maybe security doing rounds. That made sense. But then I remembered something. When I checked in, the receptionist told me this section of the resort was completely private. No shared paths. No unnecessary staff movement. So why was someone walking right outside my villa? At 3 in the morning, I got out of bed slowly and walked toward the window. The curtains were closed, but there was a small gap. I pulled it back just enough to look outside. Nothing. Just darkness. The pool reflected a faint bit of moonlight, and the trees swayed slightly in the wind. No person. No movement. I stood there for a moment trying to listen again. Silence. I let out a breath and doubted myself I had imagined it. Maybe a dream. Maybe the wind. So I went back to bed. The next night, it happened again. This time, I woke up faster. The sound was clearer. Footsteps, right outside the wall. Slow, uneven, like whoever was walking wasn't in a hurry. I didn't move at first. I just listened. Step, pause, step, pause. And then, it stopped. Right outside my bedroom. I felt my chest tighten. Whoever it was standing there, right on the other side of the wall. I forced myself to get up again, walked to the window, pulled the curtain back. Nothing. Again, no one there. At that point, I started to feel that creeping sense of unease. Not fear exactly, just that feeling that something wasn't right. The next morning, I checked the outdoor camera system. The villa had 2 cameras, one facing the entrance, one covering the pool area. I rewound the footage to around 3 a.m., and I watched. Nothing. No one walking. No shadows. No movement at all. Just an empty frame. That's when I started to question myself. Was I imagining it? Was I just not used to the silence? The third night, I didn't sleep. I stayed up, lights off, sitting on the edge of the bed, just waiting. And around the same time, I heard it again. Footsteps. This time, I didn't hesitate. I got up immediately and walked toward the front door. The sound moved with me, like whatever it was circling the villa, keeping distance, but always there. I grabbed the handle and opened the door as fast as I could. The warm night air rushed in. I stepped outside. No one, just the trees, the pool, and that same heavy silence. But then I looked down, and that's when I saw it. Wet footprints, on the ground, right in front of me. Clear, fresh, leading along the side of the villa. I followed them, step by step. They moved slowly along the wall, then turned toward the back. I kept going. My heart was pounding at this point, because I knew one thing for sure. Those footprints weren't there earlier, and I was alone, completely alone. The trail led toward the back of the villa, then stopped. Just stopped. No return path, no continuation. Like whoever made them disappeared right there. I stood there for a long time, staring at the ground, trying to make sense of it. Then I felt something I can't really explain. That feeling that you're being watched. I turned around slowly, looked back at the villa, at the windows, and for a split second, I thought I saw movement inside, in my bedroom. I didn't go back in right away. I just stood there, frozen, because I knew if I went back inside, whatever had been walking around my villa might already be in there. I packed my things the next morning and left early. Didn't even stay for breakfast. At checkout, the staff asked me if everything was okay. I told them about the footsteps, the footprints, the cameras. They just smiled politely, like they had heard it before. I never got an explanation, but I'll tell you this. I've stayed in a lot of places since then. Hotels, apartments, resorts. And I never choose isolated villas anymore. Because I realized something that night. Sometimes, you're not as alone as you think. Story 4. The area we were told never to patrol. My name is Luis. I'm 39 years old, and I used to work as a night security guard at a large coastal resort in Mexico. I worked there for almost 5 years, long enough to know the layout by heart, long enough to understand which rules mattered and which ones didn't. But there was one rule that everyone followed. No exceptions. There was a section of the resort we were told never to patrol. Not during the day, not at night, not under any circumstances. They never gave us a clear reason. At first, they said it was under renovation. Then later, it became structural safety concerns. But the explanation kept changing. And the thing about security work is, when people start changing their story, you start paying attention. The restricted area was on the far edge of the property, past the last row of villas beyond a fenced-off path that led toward a cluster of older buildings. You could see them from a distance. Dark, empty, no lights. Or at least, that's how it was supposed to look. Most guards didn't question it. You follow your route. You check your zones. You don't go where you're told not to go. Simple. But when you work night shifts long enough, curiosity gets the better of you. The first time I noticed something strange was around 2 a.m. I was doing my usual round, walking along the outer perimeter. That's when I saw it. A light. Faint, but steady, coming from the direction of the restricted area. I stopped, stared at it for a few seconds. Maybe it was maintenance. Maybe someone forgot to turn something off. That's what I told myself. But something didn't sit right, because I had never seen any activity there before, not once in 5 years. The next night I checked again. Same time, same place. The light was there again. This time, a little brighter, and I could swear it was moving. Not flickering, moving. That's when I made a decision I probably shouldn't have. I went closer. The fence wasn't locked, just a simple latch, like it wasn't really meant to keep people out, just to make it look like it did. I opened it quietly and stepped through. The air felt different immediately, heavier, still. No wind, no sound of waves, nothing, just silence. As I walked deeper into the restricted area, I started to notice things. Footprints, fresh ones, in the dirt, multiple sets, leading toward the old buildings, and not just one direction, in and out, like people were actively using the place. I slowed down. Every instinct was telling me to turn back, but I kept going. The light was coming from one of the buildings near the center, a 2-story structure with broken windows and peeling paint. It didn't look safe. It didn't look maintained. And yet, someone was clearly inside. I approached the door. It was slightly open, just enough to see a faint glow from inside. I didn't call out, didn't announce myself. Something told me that would be a bad idea. I pushed the door open a little more and looked inside. There were people, at least 3, maybe more. I couldn't see clearly. They were standing around something, or someone, on the floor, talking quietly, not like guests, not like staff. Something else. I stepped back immediately. My heart was pounding so loud, I thought they might hear it. I didn't want to know what they were doing. I didn't want to be seen. But as I turned to leave, I heard something behind me. A voice. "Hey!" I froze, slowly turned around. One of them was standing in the doorway now, looking straight at me. We didn't say anything for a few seconds. Then he stepped forward. "You're not supposed to be here," he said. His tone wasn't angry. That made it worse. It sounded certain. "I'm security," I said, trying to sound confident, trying not to show how uncomfortable I felt. "This area is restricted," he replied. "Exactly," I said. "So what are you doing here?" He smiled slightly. Not friendly, not threatening, just knowing. "You should go back to your post." There was something about the way he said it. Not a suggestion, not a warning. A decision that had already been made for me. I didn't argue. I didn't ask more questions. I just nodded and walked away. The next day, I reported everything. The lights, the footprints, the people. Management listened, took notes, nodded, and then they told me not to worry about it. 2 days later, my schedule changed. I was reassigned to a different section of the resort, far away from that area. A week after that, the fence was replaced, stronger, locked. Security cameras were added, but not to monitor who went in, only to make sure no one else did. I thought about quitting right then, but I stayed. for a few more months. Tried to convince myself it was nothing. Until one night, I saw the light again, from a distance. And this time, I noticed something I hadn't before. There were no shadows moving inside, no silhouettes, no signs of people, just the light. And somehow, that felt worse. I quit the next day. No notice, no explanation, because I realized something. Whatever was happening in that place wasn't something I was supposed to understand. And maybe those people I saw that night weren't supposed to be there either. Resorts are supposed to be places where people go to escape, to relax, to feel safe, to disconnect from everything waiting for them back home. But sometimes, being far away from everything doesn't mean you're alone. It just means there's no one else around to notice when something goes wrong. The stories you heard tonight may sound unusual, maybe even impossible, but they all share one thing in common. They happened in places where people weren't expecting anything bad to happen. Places that felt quiet, controlled, safe. And maybe that's what makes them so unsettling. Because when something feels safe, you stop looking for danger. So the next time you travel somewhere remote, the next time you check into a quiet room, far from everything, ask yourself something. Who stayed there before you? And more importantly, did they ever really leave? If you enjoyed tonight's stories, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next video. New stories are uploaded every week. And if you have your own experience, something strange, something you still can't explain, you can send it to us. The best submissions may be featured in future videos. Thank you for listening. Stay safe and sleep well.